Meeting to order. I'll ask Commissioner Stewart if you don't mind lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Please stand and join us. Heavenly Father, again we come to you with humble hearts, God, tonight. We ask that you just bless this meeting. Lord, impart your grace and mercy upon us, Lord. Give us wisdom to conduct the business of the county tonight. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Wow.
If you'd like to speak, there's several opportunities. We have a citizens to be heard at the beginning of the meeting. Also one at the end. You can speak at either one of those. And on each individual agenda item, please fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty here on each item that you'd like to speak on. And when you come up, if you will, give us your name and address so the folks at home can hear as well. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I would like to add an item to the agenda. I guess under my our general business or my stuff is basically a condemnation of the defacing of the signs coming into the county and replacing those signs.
So we'll put that under Commissioner agenda items.
That'd be fine.
All right.
Also, Mr. Chairman, under my time, I'd like to add the agenda item for the potential funding options related to the additional law enforcement officers for WCSO.
All right. Got it.
To approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. Citizens to be heard. Miss Ruth Francis. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Ruth Francis, 1056 Spring Creek Highway. My item tonight is in regard to the defacing of the signs. We would like for you, as the commissioners, to condemn this action and then replace the sign.
I don't think you're going to have any problem with that.
Well, we've actually already got in the works to replace the sign. We've already dealt with that part of it.
Now condemn the action, please.
I condemn it wholeheartedly.
All right.
It's a crying shame, and I can't think of any good reason to do that to any sign, especially for Nigel's. And so
Okay.
I hope the person that did it will get caught at some point.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
going to have an agenda item that Chuck added, so we'll all vote on it.
Okay.
Officially condemn it.
Officially condemning.
Good.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That ends our citizens to be heard. We have no awards and presentation.
Move consent approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. No consent items pulled tonight. We'll go into general business, item number 13.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is request approval to proceed with acceptance of roads within the Buck Forest platted subdivision in accordance with AR 10.01 private road ownership and maintenance acceptance.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion from the board?
This matches our current plan for any subdivision, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, the add-on item for the funding
I
option.
make a request that we go ahead and do Chuck's items if she wants to leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Budget wouldn't make
Unless
people
she
laugh.
wants to stay here all night. Yes, ma'am. Go
Let's go
ahead.
do Chuck.
Let's
Well,
do that.
you know, as Ms. Francis specified, that the signs coming into the county that we voted on to put up a couple of months ago got defaced, and we need to replace them and condemn the action from whatever individual did this activity.
I'll second your motion for condemnation. I guess the signs are going to take care of themselves.
Right.
And if we could discuss the sign, I threw out maybe one option is to do like a piggyback sign on the Wakulla sign itself. You know, when we first talked about recognizing Nigel, you know, that's kind of what I had in my mind. I'm not opposed to a standalone sign, but I think it may be better attaching it to the Wakulla sign, you know, directly underneath a green and white sign, you know, so
We'd have to apply for that with the state, I'm sure, because that's an official right-of-way sign, but I had no problem with that.
what would you think about that, Miss Francis?
It would be fine, so when they get face out of it,
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't know, you know, you always got people that are going to do the wrong thing in spite of what their mama and their grandma and the Sunday school teacher taught them, and that's unfortunate, but all we can do is address it and fix it.
I ran the public works when we first renamed Martin Luther King. And remember, we went through some hard times with that one, but it eventually worked itself out.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any citizens like to speak on that?
Going to change the motion to change the signs?
I mean, I think so, if you guys are in agreement. And you know,
I'm good with that.
I don't know that we got to go out and change them all, but if we have a situation like this where we've got to replace a sign, maybe let's see if we can attach it to the actual Wakulla sign.
And this was a sign on Spring Hill.
Spring Hill.
Spring Hill.
Yeah. I didn't know about the second one. Okay.
Okay, I guess then Chuck, maybe your motion could be to check with DOT. Oh, well, the Spring Hill Road is county road. We ain't gonna worry about that one.
Right.
If the state roads,
Let's give staff just discretion to do that
To handle the situation.
if they can.
Okay.
Yeah. Second, good with that?
yep.
Any citizens like to speak? This was not an agenda item, but you're welcome to speak on this as well. Wasn't a scheduled agenda item. All right. Further discussion from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. That's as strong as we can get, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much. All righty. Now we'll get into our funding options.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this agenda item requests board direction on potential funding options related to additional law enforcement officers that are needed by the Wakulla County Sheriff's Department. As you know, the July 16th administration staff provided you guys the proposed budget. The millage rate assumed in the proposed budget is 8.25, and that assumed funding our existing our existing expenses, the reoccurring expenses that we have, plus the additional revenue needed to get Sheriff Miller his 5 deputies that he needs to add that additional shift of folks. Currently at our 8.0351 mills that we currently have set, we can cover our existing reoccurring cost. And plus some with that is the employees under $30,000 would see some sort of adjustment in their income, as well as deputies. The line deputies would see an increase as well with that funding. The difference between the millage rate as it's set now and the 8.25 would make up the difference to allow for that shift. But that's the one way to do it through ad valorem. The other way to do it is through the PST, our public services tax. Currently, that tax is set at 7% on electricity. There's a couple of ways that we could fund through public service tax as well. We could maintain our existing ad valorem and go to a public service tax. We could eliminate, by adjusting it, we could eliminate the exemption, the 500 kilowatt exemption, and that would raise roughly about $400,000.
I make a motion to set the millage rate at 8 mills and move forward, get rid of the 500 kilowatt hour exemption.
Do we have a second?
I want to hear the rest of the explanation.
Let's hear some more options.
Go ahead, Dave.
The millage, the public service tax, by eliminating the exemption, will bring about $400,000 in. The reason I didn't have that earlier, that number earlier in the day, is I just got the information from Duke on that. We had 120,000. It'd be 120,000 from Talquin, and the balance is made up from the Duke elimination of that. So if you take the 300,000 and use that towards the Sheriff's Department, and you could take then the other 100,000, you could lower our millage rate by that. The other option is to increase the PST to take that up by to 8%, and what would that be?
$207,000
So
approximately.
you need probably take it up 1.5 to do that. That's an option. Or the option is to take your millage rate up to 8.25.
May I ask, Mr. Chairman, what would we need to make the PST be exactly to offset the need?
It would need to be about 9.5%.
If we did not remove the exemption, is that what you're asking, Mike?
No,
Yes, if we didn't remove the exemption.
9.5%.
but if you do remove
Oh,
the exemptions, it balances us out.
Leave it at the
Be at 7.
same rate.
Remove the exemption, we'd leave it at 7.
Yeah,
Leave the millage rate where it's at today, 8.
Yeah.
8.035.
Well, you could actually take the millage rate, you remove the exemption, you can take the millage rate from 8.0325 down to 8 even.
I basically,
That was my motion.
just so you know where I stand on that, I want the sheriff to have his people. I think it's very important, but I will not vote for any increase in taxes.
Okay. The only way to pay for it is an increase in tax, so that ends that.
And what this is, just so the public understands, this is, the conversation we're having is to fund the sheriff's department increase and his need for service increase.
5 new,
That's right.
Okay.
It provides this provides for new deputies.
If we use the PST, if we increase the PST by 1.5, does that get us enough? The existing millage rate, we keep our millage rate the same and get 1.5 added to our existing PST tax, does that give us enough to
Yes.
to balance it?
Not quite.
It's roughly, it's close, very close.
So, that would be my choice, because removing the exemptions, then you're hitting the people that can least afford it, least afford an increase in taxes the hardest. Because, right now, with you can advocate this because it encourages these people to reduce their utility usage, and so it's a conservation measure, and basically nobody's actually getting hammered. Because the people
everybody-
you're talking
just
about.
so
I can agree with you on that.
just so everybody understands, the exemption does not apply to low income or, I get the exemption, everybody gets the exemption. So in my mind, and I'm not gonna fall on my sword over this, we're gonna figure a way through this. With my suggestion, everybody pays for these additional 5 deputies, okay?
And both ways, everybody pays for the additional 5 deputies. We can go up by 1.5% on the PST, and everybody's paying for the additional 5
The
deputies.
unintended, and I'm not arguing about it, the unintended consequences of that is St. Mark's Powder, and I'm not saying don't vote on it because of them. 1.5% to them is, I don't know how much, $20,000-$30,000 at least. They had to
It's a
eliminate 2
big hit.
positions to pay it the first time. And this just spreads it out evenly across the citizens, the homeowners. They are getting the benefit. Now, if that's the only way it's going to pass this board, I'll vote for it. I like mine better, that we get rid of the exemption, but if that's not going to pass,
I mean,
so be it.
I think I'm leaning that way too, and this is brand new. We've just been hit with this information, so we certainly got to digest it. But if someone has a light bill that's 1,000 kilowatts, they're only paying tax on half of it, right? And so effectively, we'd have to double it to have the same amount of money without the exemption. And what we're talking about is not double, just remove it. So 1.5 or a 2% increase on the public service tax. I mean, to me, it's more fair. It's not going to hit one group harder than anyone else. Everyone is going to pay the same amount.
And everybody's already, basically with the 500, everybody's getting the 500 kilowatt hour exemption already. So it's all doing is encouraging the people that really can't afford to pay extra
you're
on the
assuming
utilities.
people that can't afford it have a low utility bill too, though, right?
Well, then they need to work at getting a lower utility bill. Then they have an argument not to complain.
What I don't understand is, you're raising it 1.5%. That's affecting the same people that you say are
affecting the same
disaffected.
people.
So
Okay.
they're not any more affected by removing the 500 kilowatt hour than they are by raising it 1.5%. You see what I'm saying?
Except that this disproportionately hits, this tax disproportionately hits the weak,
I don't understand how. Again,
aggressive, it's regressive. Okay, what that means is the $10 you pay for your utility tax to you is a lot less than economically is a lot less to you than it is to somebody that only makes $10,000.
But you're wanting to raise it 1.5%, not you, the board. There's an idea. It's to raise it can I use the same logic saying, well, you're wanting to raise it 1.5%?
Except this gives the opportunity for the individuals in that situation to work at conserving their power, okay, and not paying as much.
So if
They can still do that even with the 500 kilowatt hour exemption gone.
But there's certain
Go ahead, Mike.
to get it clear in my mind.
Go ahead.
If we do away with the 500 kilowatt, we only have to raise it 1%? It's PS
Zero.
Zero.
Zero. If we just do away with it,
And you take away the exemption, that's a $400,000, yes.
How much does that come out per person per day?
According to the electric company, both electric companies are different. Talcon, it'd be about a buck, probably about $1.30 per month.
Per month?
Per month, and Duke is about $4 a month.
Which I don't think Talcott's numbers are right.
And I don't think Talcon, I think it's probably, they're probably somewhere in the middle is about right. But that was the numbers I got from Duke and
I
Talcon.
think about $3 would probably, a month.
But, and also understand this, is if you raise your, which is possible, raise your PST, that will be an increase on the increased tier. Okay, because your first tier is your cheapest tier. If you take that exemption away, that's on that cheapest tier. Understand the 7% is on, so therefore it's on the higher rate, so you'll get this more money.
I would rather take the exemption away.
Which is more expensive.
You're not going to vote for this anyway, Jerry.
Pardon?
You're not going to vote for it anyway.
I'm going to vote for taking the exemption away.
Okay.
I don't have to vote for a tax increase.
Okay.
It would be a tax increase.
It's a tax increase either way you look at it.
That's a tax increase, that's right,
In
yes.
my mind, hearing all this, it's a less of a tax increase. Overall,
Yes, we could,
if we just do away with is that right? So less of a tax increase.
It's
Depends on
probably
who-
less impactful, I think, was the,
that's all according to how,
instead of raising your property taxes, you pay.
Raise property tax.
Okay, well, I'm saying, instead of raising property taxes and you pay it once a year, this is not going to affect your mortgage payment. You know, it's going to be a small additional on your power bill every month. The dollar amount's going to be the same.
I know.
There's no lying about that.
It's on your power bill, your water bill, your
Here's the
gas
truth.
bill.
well, your
It's not
power
just one
bill.
bill.
And if whatever we do, it's never going to
If
go
you
away.
get bottled propane gas, yes, not your,
This government at its best, is we,
not gas in your
whatever we
car.
impose. is
Scare
gonna-
people.
Well, and
I'm thinking about the future. I mean, down the road, we got to still make adjustments for things that happen either in law enforcement or wherever in our government. And, you know, if we keep raising everything, pretty soon our options run out. So, I think this is, I believe in the PSD because it's a flat tax that everybody pays regardless. And I think that's a fair tax. I wish we could do all of government on a flat tax period and we didn't have ad valorem at all.
Plus
Pretty
we-
soon I think that's going to be handed to us anyway by big government. It's going to tell us you can't have ad valorem anymore. So
And I guarantee that additional $25,000 homestead is going to pass in November. So there's going to be a $75,000, ad valorem tax. Let me say one more thing if I could. When David presented the budget to us, a couple of years ago, you told us 8.25. If we stayed at that, we could handle all the growth from here on out if we just kept the 8.25 mils. Now, we did a one-time tax decrease. I call it the Bush tax cuts, the best analogy I can think of, which was burn down reserves, and we lowered the millage rate to 8 point whatever the heck it is.
035, yeah.
035, to burn through that extra reserves. Well, we burned through it in a year because we have unexpected expenses. So taking it back to where it was, either 8.25 is the millage rate we need to be at going forward to sustain growth, or 8 minus the exemption. I personally support 8 minus the exemption. I think going forward, whoever sits on this board, if we get in our mind, let's leave it at 8, and whatever increases will offset CPI increases for health insurance, and because things just cost more.
That's a question. Is there nowhere else that we can find the money?
Yeah,
Not
you should
that, not
elaborate
that
now.
large a dollar volume.
Now, we had the courthouse expense. Has that already been factored into everything? Is that,
We have looked, there is,
but when does that stop? When does that 200,000?
that hits your 1 cent sales
Yeah,
tax.
that couldn't be used to pay for this.
That couldn't be used for this anyway.
The only way that we as a board could really pay for this would be to eliminate the library, eliminate Parks and Rec. That would pay for it. I'm not willing to do that, and I don't think anybody up here is.
It's a $250,000. That's a pretty big
That's
budget.
right. And this would, you have to do this. This isn't just, you can't say we're just going to do it this year and not next. No,
We need
This
to
is
go
from
ahead.
here on.
We don't need to kick the can down the road.
That's right. This
Just
is from
get it
here
over
on.
with.
What is the difference in 8.0 and if we went to the rollback rate? How much money does that generate between rollback and 8.0?
the true rollback.
True rollback.
True rollback.
It's about $200,000.
200,000.
what's the true rollback?
7.8.
something.
Yeah.
099.
But remember, to me, the rollback rate's a fictitious number. If we
Right.
set the millage rate at 10 mils, next year the rollback rate's going to be 9.8. You're chasing down a rabbit hole. It's always going to be, the rollback rate, unless it's bad economic times where we had a roll up rate, like we had a couple of years ago, it's always going to be lower than your current thing. And that's just not realistic because health insurance costs more. Everything costs go up. They don't go down.
Well, Mike mentioned the fair tax, and I agree with that, and I wish we could get to the point where we can get the ad valorem down to zero, and I know that's too far to go, and that's not possible, but I like the idea of a flat fair tax where everybody's paying the share for the services that we all use. You know, I threw out something when I met with David and the sheriff the other day, and just throw it out, one more option here. You know, what I'd like to see is if we can do the numbers and figure it out, is to get rid of the exemption on the PST, go to the rollback rate of 7.8, so now that's going to leave us another $200,000 hole. But we picked up about $1.2 million in the sheriff's jail bed this year.
And
so
I know that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, but we're still building a jail bed, but let's absorb 200,000 of it. That way we can tell the public, yeah, we are getting rid of your exemption, so you've got a tax increase because of an increased PST, but we are dropping your ad valorem tax to the rollback, and let's take 1 year to see if we can continue growing that jail bed revenue, and we're digging out of the hole faster than we were expecting.
And I appreciate what you're saying, but the last thing I want, that really got us in a jam relying on non-occurring revenue to pay for reoccurring expenses. We're trying to actually wean off that jail bed revenue, and this would put us,
We're still heading that direction to the tune of $1 million, just not 1.2 million.
this will wean us more back onto it. I understand what you're saying, and I considered that also. I just assume
It's just
They're kicking
taking a
the
little
can down the
smaller
road.
bite than the big bite all in 1 year.
this is not a massive
Yeah.
amount of money so I would just assume our motion stands. Let's just do it, and we're done with it. And that would be give staff direction to
Did we ever get a
advertise.
second? We didn't get a second, did we?
I'll second.
We got a second. Citizens? Patty? No citizens on this? Further discussion?
One issue, Mr. Chairman, because of some statutory deadlines and notice requirements, and when this tax or the exemption could be removed, it has to be done on a calendar, start date of a calendar quarter. And so in order to make that, if you could include in your motion, the agenda item says that we're going to bring back a draft ordinance for schedule and advertising. From a timing perspective, that's not going to be possible, and so we would like to get approval to advertise the public hearing to amend Section 29.085 of the code, which would remove that 500 kilowatt exemption tonight.
Of course, that's what I said, I thought, but that's in my motion.
Are you saying it would be effective as of tonight?
No, it would not, but
No.
we'd have to we'd have to advertise it this
Advertise.
week and bring it back to you for public hearing at your next
And
meeting.
that's setting the millage rate at
August.
8 mils.
Well, you're not.
No.
No,
This is
that-
pure PST.
That is the direction I would like to
Right.
go in. is
But
set
the
millage
motion
rate
is to go
strictly with PST.
8.0.
And also what this would do is...
We're not, I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
We're not making,
We're not
we don't
talking
have
about
to make the millage
No.
tonight.
No. This is simply related to the exemption.
All right.
And what this would do is, well, is we would work out with Jared on the timing of hiring these folks based on when this revenue rolls in, okay? So that would, if we go that way.
Yeah, so you got that. The motion does not include the 8.0 millage. It only addresses
That's all we're talking-
removing the
that's just
PST
the-
exemption.
Direction, the main thing I need direction on was advertising if we're going to move forward with that. So that's fine.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, if we can, before we vote, I want to ask the sheriff to come up. I want the public to hear, I mean, he's explained it in detail to us personally about, I would like you to reiterate about the call volume that has to wait on a deputy to get there because you don't have enough deputies to go call.
And I appreciate it. Thank you all, Commissioners. First of all, I want to thank you all for understanding that this is a need and not a want for the Sheriff's Office. Our calls for service are steadily going up. Our population's growing. And with the widening of 319, I see it more and more. So, but one of the biggest concerns I have are the calls for service that are waiting. If Commissioner Stewart calls the Sheriff's Office and asks for a deputy to be there, it may not be an emergency, but we have in the past, we've been able to send a deputy straight to your house. Right now, we may, at any given time, we may have all 5 deputies on a call waiting to clear a call, and then they're having to come to your house within 15, 20 minutes, sometimes even longer. And of course, if it's an emergency, we end up coming anyway. We break away from the calls and go back to the other calls. But I started in 2016, we started tracking those calls, and there was like 247 calls the remainder of that year that I was in office. So went up every year, and this year we project 317 calls waiting that aren't responded to immediately. Now, like I said, if those are emergency calls, we're going to pull away and go to those calls. But 317 calls in a year, that's a lot of calls waiting for a deputy to come to your house. And in the past, it hasn't been like that. So we've just started tracking that, and I do see that more and more. In 2007, we had 55 officers. Today we have 50. So if we get the 5 positions, that's going to bring us up to what we were 10 years ago. And it's just it's a need. It's not a want. And I know the predicament y'all are in. I understand, and I appreciate y'all's willingness to look at all the options. But whatever options you choose, please know that this is a need. It's not a want, and I need it.
And you've made efforts to cut as much as you can staff, administrative-wise. I know you've done a lot of cuts in that area.
Just to get you up to date, and this is it in a nutshell, when I first took office, there was about 7 or 8 people left. I reevaluated the people that left. Some of them were high-paying positions. We replaced all of them but 3. I actually eliminated 3 positions when I first took office, and the other positions were higher paid. We hired more people with lower paying jobs. So that money that I saved the county, we did some salary alignments for the core people that had been there 5 or 6 years, and gave them a salary alignment, which still, our starting deputies are still making $31,000 a year, which is way under the surrounding counties. And I don't mean Leon County. We'll never be able to pay what Leon County pays, but right now Franklin County's paying more than us, Jefferson County, Madison. So these guys want to stay home. They want to work for our county. They love this county, and this is the only thing that I can do to help them, is to get some more positions right now.
And the point I was trying to drive home is no sheriff should have to worry about triaging people to go to a call. And when you're leaving that up to the sheriff to have to do that, that's not fair to him. It's not fair to the public. And I think and I know you guys agree that our primary focus is supposed to be the safety of our citizens, and that's the reason I'm going down this road. And I really think we're going to have to be prepared to do something like this every year, because we're going to have to address sooner or later. The sheriff's not going to be able to retain people because he's not paying them enough, and they can go to other surrounding counties and get a job making more money. It hurts my feelings when I go in to an auto parts store like I went in the other day, and there's a deputy standing there having to work a second or third job to make ends meet. It shouldn't work like that.
And that's kind of why I was preaching, Mike. If we hold the millage rate steady in our minds, we know with increased growth and property values going up, that same number is going to generate more revenue year after year. And that, theoretically, if we leave the millage rate alone, that should handle cost of living increases and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then new growth will then, if we keep millage at 8%, say they build a Lowe's, all right, new growth then will generate additional revenue, and when the break time comes even, they can hire more deputies. So.
Okay.
But you brought up a good point, Commissioner Stewart. That's what we are doing. We are triaging right now, and the triage is getting harder and harder to do. And we're at a crucial point right now at the sheriff's office. Major Kemp's here. He's over law enforcement, and he can tell you I'm with him all the time complaining about what we need to do. But the calls are there. The calls for service are increasing, and we've got to do something to get on top of it. 15 miles north, if you go to Leon County, there's murders every day. There's Woodville. I mean, we're surrounded by it, and we've been lucky enough to keep it pushed off. But the time's coming when it's going to slowly come in if we don't stay on top of it.
And Mike Kemp's been lamenting about this for years. If they have somebody sick, on a shift, they're down a person on a shift. And
well, and
I want to point out, if y'all don't mind too,
Come on up to the
Go
microphone.
to the microphone.
Something I want to point out, that the sheriff actually brought out is that we're dealing with, annual time, people all sick. So we're not like Leon County and TPD. We're the only law enforcement agency here that makes house calls. That's it. You don't have a police department. You got TPD, Leon County Sheriff's Office, FSU, FAMU, FHP. FHP works for rec. So what we're dealing with calls for service, but it's not even, that's the biggest thing. You're sending deputies to stuff that they don't need to go by themselves. So it's an officer safety issue, guys, if anything. And, the sheriff has done a phenomenal job of, trying to get everything budget-wise and stuff like that. But y'all, I'll be honest with you, I've been here 28 years, and we need the help. And that's the bottom line is to it. And it's going to benefit everybody in the county by these positions and stuff like that.
I don't think there's a question that we're not going to give you what you're asking for. It's just how we
Yes, sir.
decide to obtain it.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank y'all.
I think our next, and to address maybe one of the ways to possibly address it without the future, like you're talking about, Commissioner Stewart, and is this pay discrepancy is in a couple of years, maybe not this coming up year, but the next year, we've got to deal. We're going to be at a point with ICE where we're going to need to make a decision. We're going to we've put enough money in our fund balance where we've reached our fund balance. And we'll be at a point, do we continue at the current program that we have with ICE, or do we fall back to a different program that is less expensive and less revenue naturally, but still enough revenue to be able to become a transfer facility? Then we have a more steady income, and that could possibly pay for exactly what you're talking about along those lines. But that's a decision that's probably 2 years down the road that we're going to,
And we've got to keep
probably
working
next
on,
year we're going to need to address.
we got to keep working on filling that funding gap then.
And we got to continue that
So
funding
he has,
gap.
so he and we have the flexibility to say, we don't want to do ICE anymore. We don't have to lay a bunch of
And
people
that's
off.
what I'm saying. That funding gap, maybe we can have it filled in 2 years.
Good.
We hope.
Okay. I'm fine.
I'm ready.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Further discussion?
And what are we voting on?
Right now, we're voting just to remove the 500 kilowatt exemption.
That's it.
Advertise.
And that'll come back
And
to
advertise.
us officially at the next meeting, correct? So right now, we're just moving it forward, advertising, moving forward. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, that ends our general business. No public hearings, no planning and zoning. We've already dealt with Commissioner Hess's item. County Attorney.
Nothing additional this evening.
County Administrator.
Nothing at this time other than it's rained a lot. We got a lot of messy roads out there. Our staff ESG is working hard as they can, but considering the rain we got today, it's going to be back messy again, but we're holding up as best we can.
Thank you. Citizens to be heard? Discussion items?
I had three things, and I'm glad to hear Chuck brought it up earlier, was the Nigel Bradham sign issue. I just want to say again to the citizens that we're better than that, and we should be better than that. And it really disgusts me that somebody would stoop to that lower level to face those signs of a fine young man who's made something of himself in this community, and that really bothers me. So that's what I was going to say about it, and I'm glad you brought it up, Chuck. But the other one is the Comcast Internet. I know we can't do anything, but I just wanted to say it in public that you need to get a hold of the Public Services Commission. That's who you need to contact. We don't have any power over those folks. I wish we did. We'd run them out of town, but we don't. So, I mean, I'm hearing people now having to pay $3,000, $4,000 to get internet service to the house. Now, I know they're choosing to live in remote areas, and yes, they got to pay a fee, but still, that's ridiculous. And the last thing is, contrary to popular belief, Chuck and I aren't twins. I shaved my beard, and he shaved his, and we grew the beard, but we don't talk to each other about it. So
That's a violation of the Sunshine Law if y'all did.
We got a clean
David?
shaven commission up there.
David, speaking of that, you've been sending some emails out recently about 5G wireless. What is that? Would that help with the internet?
Yeah, that's the answer to the future. The future is this, the last mile. What they call the last mile is 5G, meaning in the future, there won't be a need for cable, and that's the reason that Comcast is like, yeah, we'll run it, but it's going to cost, you're going to have to pay for it all the way out there. Is the 5G. That's what the world is going to, and they're just deploying it now, trying to deploy it in Tallahassee if they can get through their planning and zoning, and 60 antennas in Tallahassee. But we've asked, we sent a letter to Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile to ask us to be their urban test site in the state of Florida.
It's like a super cellular service?
It's 100 times faster than 4G, and it's to where you will no longer have to have any cables in your house whatsoever.
The whole world changes with 5G.
5G, the whole world changes.
Does it work in Smith Creek?
It has a smaller footprint.
Yeah.
Are they able to use the same
antenna is
towers?
probably only 2 feet tall, but you can
It's
stick it
smaller.
on top of a, telephone pole.
Right.
So you don't have to have a full dedicated tower for it.
The problem is all of the Comcast, CenturyLink, and all these providers, they understand that, so they've shut down extending cables. What we did is we illustrated in our letter, if you read it, we illustrated in the letter, we have the fiber backbone, and that's a big plus for our county. So therefore, the capital to come off of that fiber and extend it to these sites is a lot better because they don't have to bring the fiber to us. Okay, the fiber's already here, as well as within a small area for a rural county, they can pick up with not much capital, pick up a large group of people, up to 7,000 folks. So within a small area to be a test site. So then what we do from there is if we're able to get that, then we can go back and say, okay, now if you've tested it out, it's good. Now we can go to Sopchoppy, St. Mark's,
Not Smith Creek.
How about Bottoms?
But we gotta have fiber in Smith
aren't
Creek.
70
That's the big
people in
problem
Smith
there. Fiber's the big problem in Smith Creek. So
what's the price structure of your data going to be in 5G?
no idea.
Oh, yeah, nobody knows.
Because I mean that's going to be the issue. Because right now you do Xfinity hotspot, and you're going to get killed with data.
Well,
if
it's
you try to use
that
the
I
internet.
couldn't tell you that, but all I know is that is what's coming, and that's the reason everybody's shut down, and that's where it's heading.
We met with Verizon, and basically now, they have to pick that signal up on a microwave and shoot it to another dish to get to the web. And they said that they have every FCC permit that they could get, so they can't expand. You may notice that with Verizon, our signal has been terrible, even right downtown, and it's because we're data hogs now. We're all consuming a large amount of data, and so they just physically can't push enough through the pipes to satisfy, even in a rural county. So once we get that fiber, then they're able to just basically like a fleet of dump trucks instead of a single dump truck. They're able to move a lot more data with a lot less equipment. And
They go to a different bandwidth.
I understand that. We already have the fiber in town, so they just need to connect to that.
Right.
Very
Verizon.
sound like you know.
Well, but
Right,
they
and
still
that's-
have to have these remote antennas. Like you may have an antenna that only covers, Sweetwater Ridge, only just a small area. But you're going to have a lot more of these antennas all over the place.
You have to have a lot because there's only line of sight. So if you have to have line of sight for one of these.
And
antennas.
but anyway, that's the future, and it's.
We'll go through what?
I sent you each a video that Verizon has actually sent us. There's 3 videos in there. Look at that, and that'll give you an idea. It's China is going as fast as they can, and the United States is right behind them, and we'll be leading China here for long in 5G. But 5G is.
There's not going to be a 6G?
I'm sure there will.
I'm sure there's going to be but this is so faster. It's unbelievable how fast it is.
But it is line of sight.
And also what this does is it leads to recruitment, better recruitment for industry, et cetera.
Anything, brother? I'm going to pass tonight's open house at the high school, so just like to tell all the kids, be safe this week as they head back to school.
Speaking of that, my daughter will be 16 on Friday, get her license 9 o'clock in the morning, so watch the roads. And last item, motion to adjourn.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Gotta get her lined up at 9 o'clock, Chuck, for a driving test.
It's line of sight for 5G.
Now, would you say